The PS5 and Series X tend to be quite evenly matched in multi-platform software, so how do they stack up in Baldur's Gate 3? Visually, there's not a lot to separate them, but there are a few curious differences. The ground surface appears slightly higher on the Series X in my testing, across many of the game's environments. If you look closely at character feet, I think the ground on the Series machine is a closer match in many instances for foot placement. The actual ground geometry appears similar though across both machines. I also noticed a decrease in anisotropic filtering quality on Series X. The PS5 acquits itself pretty well here, while the Series X takes a noticeable hit to clarity. When the camera runs perpendicular to the scene, the difference can be quite significant, though in gameplay from isometric or overhead camera perspectives, it's a lot less noticeable. I also spotted some differences in the water, with the Xbox version retaining some of the hazy-looking water at a distance, which I think is an attempt to give the water an impression of more natural sky reflection. At close range, the water looks identical though. Outside of those changes, in general visual settings, the two consoles are a close match. That applies equally across both modes on both consoles, because the performance and quality modes have matching settings outside of resolution. The Series X's visual changes carry over to both modes in about the same manner. In terms of image quality, both systems deliver a reasonably good-looking image on a 4K television set, albeit a slightly soft one. On Series X, I did notice a couple of curious things though, like visibly lower resolution HUD elements, but when I went to pixel count the image, it came in at very similar figures to the PS5 build, a straight 1440p in quality mode and 1080p in the performance mode. Performance-wise, the quality mode targets a 30 FPS update, and does a very good job of hitting that target. In general play, it's essentially a locked 30 during combat, cutscenes, and open world exploration. But the town of Baldur's Gate in Act 3 poses some issues, just like the PS5 release. Interestingly though, the Series X seems to struggle a fair bit more in hitting its frame time targets here, with deeper and longer bouts of sub 30 FPS performance. The performance mode again hits its 60 FPS framerate target without issue generally speaking. In typical play, you might spot a one-off dropped frame from time to time or a brief stutter very occasionally. We see significantly degraded performance in town areas, sometimes hitting the upper 20s. Baldur's Gate 3 also lets the game tear in a small area near the top of the screen in its performance mode, to prioritize image response when the game is under load. This is less obtrusive than the tearing on PS5, which lets the game tear on both the top and bottom margins of the screen. For a slow-paced game like this, I would probably prefer a perfectly V-synced presentation, but it doesn't matter that much. And of course, with VRR enabled, you won't see any tearing artifacts. There's also a co-op mode, which ran consistently at 30 FPS in my testing. The resolution here comes in at 1440p, just like the quality mode. A slow-paced game like Baldur's Gate 3 makes for a bit of an unconventional couch co-op experience, but it seems to work pretty well if you feel so inclined.